You already know more than you think. You just don't know how to read the signs yet. Because every person leaves clues. And Nietzsche's 18 truths will teach you how to find them and what they mean. This is the skill no one teaches you, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. But this video isn't a quick list or surface-level advice. It's a complete breakdown divided into 3 powerful parts, each building on the last. If you skip ahead or miss one, you'll lose the depth that makes this truly work. So stay with me, because by the end of all 3 parts, you won't just understand others. You'll understand yourself in ways you never expected. From early childhood, you learn to trust people's words. Language becomes our primary tool. Yet Nietzsche cautioned us against being deceived by what's spoken, because humans don't communicate from truth. They communicate from survival instincts, from ego protection, from underlying fears. The exterior someone presents isn't their authentic self. It's protective armor. Someone appearing excessively kind might not truly be kind. They could be deeply afraid of being rejected. The person projecting strength might be falling apart inside, desperately hoping nobody sees. What makes human behavior so misleading is that most people aren't even conscious of this dynamic. The majority are performers in a script they never authored. Their expressions, their viewpoints, their manner of speaking, all molded by what provided them safety. This explains why people aren't deliberately hiding from you. They're concealing themselves from their own awareness. Nietzsche observed, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." This wasn't criticism. It was advice. Don't mistake the protective layer for the real person beneath. Here's the part nobody mentions. People constantly reveal truth, not through their statements, but through the gaps. The instances when they avert their gaze, the forced laughter that goes on too long, how quickly they redirect conversation when it approaches something vulnerable. Nietzsche's first psychological insight: everyone constructs a mask for survival, not from dishonesty, but from fear. To navigate society, people craft a version of themselves they believe will gain acceptance. But these masks are imperfect. They slip. The initial indicator of truth is discomfort. Notice what creates unease in someone. That's where authenticity emerges. 2. What triggers someone's contempt in others mirrors what they're concealing within themselves. This represents one of Nietzsche's most penetrating observations: projection. When someone repeatedly criticizes arrogance, they're frequently wrestling with their own self-worth issues. When someone fixates on calling out others' dishonesty, they're typically avoiding a truth they haven't confronted in themselves. We despise in others what terrifies us to acknowledge within ourselves. To truly read someone, examine not only what they praise, but what they condemn, and explore why. 3. Quiet moments communicate more than language. Nietzsche questioned whether truth emerged from talking. He viewed language as a collective tool, frequently employed to sidestep confronting reality. When someone hesitates before responding, when certain subjects get avoided, when deep questions receive brief, rehearsed answers, that quietness speaks volumes. Someone evading vulnerability is broadcasting everything about their fears. 4. Extreme virtue often masks vanity. Be cautious around those who loudly advertise their moral purity, constantly correcting others, perpetually preaching. Nietzsche identified this as disguised will to power. Sometimes morality becomes a shield for feeling superior. The more vocal the virtue signaling, the greater likelihood something's being concealed. Authentic goodness doesn't require an audience. 5. People deceive themselves before deceiving you. This changes your entire perspective. The untruths you hear, "I'm fine, I'm over it, I don't care," aren't meant to wound you. Their mantras repeated so frequently that they've become believed. Nietzsche recognized self-deception not as malicious, but as protective, a mechanism to continue functioning in a difficult world. When someone's narrative seems inconsistent, don't assume they're deliberately misleading you. Understand they've been doing this to themselves much longer. That's what makes reading them feasible. The contradictions expose reality. 6. Where someone displays superiority, they're masking inferiority. Pure Nietzsche. He recognized that superiority typically stems from overcompensation. When someone continuously references their achievements, they likely doubt their adequacy. When someone casually diminishes others, they're probably terrified of being unnoticed. Genuine confidence doesn't need competition. It simply exists. If someone requires dominance, control, or validation, look beneath the surface. Behind a powerful facade, you'll frequently find a frightened child wearing borrowed authority. Reading people isn't about judgment. It's about comprehending their essence. When someone constantly interrupts, you now recognize it's not necessarily arrogance. It could be fear of becoming invisible. When someone obsessively posts about happiness, it might signal a plea for recognition. When someone avoids eye contact while claiming, "I'm fine," you know to trust the body language over the words. Apply these insights not to manipulate, but to extend understanding. Because the more accurately you perceive someone, the less inclined you become to harbor resentment. That's Nietzsche's hidden wisdom. He didn't want you seeing through others to control them. He wanted you seeing through them to stop being misled and start genuinely connecting. If you've ever observed someone and since you were only glimpsing the surface, if you've wished you could decode what truly exists beneath the mask, share your thoughts below. Let's discuss those moments when people revealed their truth without verbal communication. And if this perspective shifted how you see people, subscribe. Much more is coming, and you'll want to witness the rest of Nietzsche's truths unfold. It's one thing recognizing the mask exists. It's entirely different watching it fracture. If you've been observant, you've probably witnessed it. A flash of discomfort when beliefs get questioned. How their voice changes when subjects become too personal. The anxious laugh disconnected from their words. These aren't accidents. They're evidence. When you know what to seek, you'll realize people aren't difficult to read. They're simply afraid of being truly seen. Part 1 explored how people construct personas for self-protection. Now in Part 2, we venture deeper into where those personas begin cracking. Nietzsche believed the self isn't fixed. It's a performance, a constructed role designed for survival. When threatened, truth emerges. 7. Most behavior stems from unconscious fear. Consider this. Why does someone over-explain? Why do they control conversations or completely withdraw? Why say yes when they clearly intend no? Fear. Fear of abandonment, rejection, humiliation, failure. Nietzsche understood humans rarely act from pure motivation. They act from profound fear of losing something, status, love, self-worth. To read someone accurately, stop focusing on their stated desires. Instead, question, what are they terrified of losing? That's where truth resides. 8. Excessive criticism functions as projection. Next time someone constantly judges others, listen carefully. The person mocking emotional displays might be terrified of their own feelings. The individual belittling others' appearance might be battling their own reflection privately. Nietzsche taught that judgment rarely concerns the target. It concerns the judge. When hearing repeated criticisms, don't focus on who's being criticized. Trace back to the critic. What aspect of themselves are they attempting to reject? Projection isn't merely defense, it's confession. Listen properly, and it reveals precisely where someone's pain exists. 9. Guilt disguises itself as false confidence. You've encountered this type, appearing overly certain, always controlled, perpetually composed. But observe longer and notice the jaw tension, the excessive preparation, the defensiveness under pressure. Nietzsche noticed this in leaders, educators, those performing certainty because they fear being exposed. When someone exhibits chronic confidence, seek the guilt they're burying. Perhaps it's regret. Perhaps it's a former version of themselves they're trying to disprove. Authentic peace doesn't perform. When someone seems excessively confident, don't feel intimidated. Be curious. 10. People reveal themselves through exaggeration. Subtle, yet powerful. Once recognized, impossible to ignore. Someone constantly declaring, "I don't care what anyone thinks," likely cares immensely. Someone claiming, "I'm always happy," likely isn't. Exaggeration serves as a tell. the ego attempting to drown doubt. Nietzsche believed extremism in any direction indicates imbalance, not strength. When statements sound overly absolute, don't trust the content. Read the underlying insecurity. Exaggeration is volume. The question becomes, what are they trying to silence? 11. Control-seeking masks internal chaos. Control. We pursue it everywhere. Careers, relationships, routines. But some crave it obsessively. That's revealing. Nietzsche observed clearly, when the internal world lacks order, the external world demands obsessive management. If someone micromanages details, can't handle change, dominates to feel powerful, it's not strength. Something inside feels chaotic. Rather than fearing the controlling person, recognize them. Someone terrified that releasing control means everything collapses. The more rigid the exterior, the more fragile the interior. 12. Performance conceals internal emptiness. One of Nietzsche's most haunting observations, more relevant today than ever. Consider social media, the endless look-at-me energy. Perfect images, constant updates, curated identities. Nietzsche saw this not as strength, but desperation. When someone constantly performs, they don't believe they'll be seen or valued without it. So they generate noise, spectacle, drama. But those who truly know themselves don't require observation. They're already complete. When someone's existence resembles a performance, remember, it's not power, it's need. Putting it together, you're probably sensing it now, the transformation. You enter spaces, and patterns communicate louder than language. You observe constant interruption and recognize the fear of being forgotten. You notice endless boasting and sense the invisible wound. You're not mind-reading. You're reading the mask. Nietzsche provided the illumination. This isn't merely a skill. It's a responsibility. Once you learn to see people clearly, you cannot unsee it. You'll begin understanding that most people suffer quietly behind polished exteriors. Reading them isn't about gaining advantage. It's about offering grace. When you recognize the child behind the critic, the fear behind the aggressor, the guilt behind arrogance, you don't weaken. You become unshakable. By this point, something within you has transformed. You don't merely see people, you read them, not as antagonists, not as victims, but as humans attempting survival with masks they never consciously chose. But we're not finished. Behind every behavior exists a belief, and behind every belief exists a wound. This final section concerns learning to recognize the soul, the deep narrative hiding beneath everyone you encounter. Nietzsche didn't just expose behavioral patterns. He illuminated their origins. 13. Nobody speaks from logic. They speak from pain. You might assume people are rational, that they argue using facts, decide based on reason. Nietzsche thought differently. He believed beneath every logical argument lies an emotional wound. Someone might state, I don't believe in love, it's fantasy. But listen deeper. They're not stating fact. They're protecting pain. People form perspectives based on what wounded them, then rationalize those views with logic. To understand someone's worldview, don't just ask what they believe. Ask what broke them, what frightened them, what they never want experiencing again. This transforms everything. It shifts focus from why are they saying this to were they afraid of repeating. Suddenly their opinions aren't threats, they're defenses. Their arguments aren't attacks, they're shields. Recognizing this, you stop reacting. You start comprehending. 14. Reactions to weakness reveal true power. Want to genuinely assess character? Don't observe how they treat powerful people. Watch how they treat those who can't resist. Nietzsche believed authentic strength isn't proven through domination. It's revealed through restraint. If someone mocks vulnerability, they fear their own. If someone punishes errors, they likely weren't permitted any. If someone always wins but leaves casualties, they're still battling themselves. But someone who witnesses weakness without judgment, who sits with sadness without fleeing, who forgives what they could punish, that's someone no longer governed by their past. They don't need proving anything because they've won the internal battle. To read someone, provide a moment where compassion becomes optional. Their choice reveals who they are, not who they pretend being. 15. Fear of being forgotten drives attention-seeking. Ever encountered someone requiring constant visibility? Every entrance, every story, every choice screams, "Notice me." Initially appears like confidence, but Nietzsche saw through it. The hunger for attention frequently stems from deeper fear. Fear of invisibility, of erasure, of existing and disappearing without impact. People create noise not from love of it, but from inability to bear silence. The ignored child becomes the overcompensating adult. Instead of requesting love directly, they demand it indirectly through performance, drama, chaos. When encountering someone who seems excessive, don't rush to judgment. Question what they fear happens if they're insufficient. Sometimes attention isn't vanity, it's a signal. 16. The attacked person often represents the envied person. One of Nietzsche's boldest truths, hardest to admit. People don't always attack from hatred. They often attack because they admire but feel they cannot become. Criticism proves easier than admiration. The person tearing down success, mocking confidence, gossiping about freedom, isn't just mean, they're hurting. Because witnessing someone embody an abandoned part of yourself reminds you of what's lost. Rather than celebrating the other, we destroy them. But envy is just unexpressed desire. The soul saying, "I want that too, but don't believe I'm allowed." Recognizing this in others makes you immune to petty hatred. Recognizing this in yourself makes you free. 17. People reenact childhood, not beliefs. You've heard people don't change. Nietzsche would say people repeat. They repeat forced roles, taught fears, dynamics never escaped. The unheard person becomes someone who doesn't listen. The person punished for showing emotion becomes cold, logical, detached. The person who earned love becomes someone performing for affection, even when toxic. They believe they're acting from beliefs, but they're just reenacting the past. To read someone, don't just examine who they are. Ask who they had to be, because behavior is biography. Behind every adult exists a child still seeking safety. 18. Patterns are confessions when you listen properly. The final truth, it changes everything. People don't always know expressing what hurts, but they'll demonstrate repeatedly through patterns. Someone who disappears when intimacy approaches. Someone who overworks, avoiding stillness. Someone who flirts with everyone but connects with nobody. These aren't random behaviors. They're confessions. Saying this is my protection. Saying this is where I was wounded. Saying this is what I fear repeating. Nietzsche believed that learning to listen deeply, not to words but to patterns, lets you hear truth before it's spoken. When you do, something remarkable happens. You stop personalizing. You stop judging. You start understanding. You become a mirror, not a weapon. You become someone who sees and still chooses grace. That, more than any technique or trick, creates power. You're not just reading people. You're remembering yourself. Now reflect. Every truth we covered wasn't just about others. It concerned you, your patterns, your fears, your childhood scripts. Because seeing others clearly means seeing yourself clearly. This isn't the journey's end. It's the beginning of a new way of perceiving. Nietzsche didn't want us merely observing. He wanted us awakening, knowing that everything we judge in others we carry ourselves, that everything we admire we long to embody. If you felt recognized by this content, if you've identified patterns in people or yourself, don't keep it private. Comment below which of these 18 truths resonated most powerfully. Let's build something honest together in a world of masks. And if this spoke to you, subscribe. This is just the beginning of learning to see what's hidden and becoming who you really are.